our mother-in-law passed away that summer when my wife and I and our oldest daughter were doing like a mission trip similar to like a Habitat for Humanity for a week long. She got sick, passed away that summer, and then our father-in-law got sick like 2 months later. Once he got sick, it was just like, hey, like, what are we doing? Let's go back to the family. All the mental health stuff that I was going through was really heavy for my wife and the family too. So like, maybe it's the sunshine and being around our friends.
Yeah.
Let's try going back. And then that's where, just sat down with my wife, and she's like, do you think you cut hair for a little bit? So I was like, yeah, let me just do it for a few months. But in my head, I was like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to blow this out of the water. We're going to do it for real. But I was still at a friend's shop. And then after a few months of being there, I just felt like, this is not the right vibe that I want. So I convinced her to let me sign a lease on a small place, and that's where it started.
Welcome to the Premium Mindset, the weekly podcast where homegrown entrepreneurs and business owners Evan Ritchey and Cameron Bodden share the good, the bad, and the ugly of modern entrepreneurship and reveal what really happens behind the scenes of their personal and professional lives. As owners of two of America's fastest growing and most disruptive companies, Coconut Cleaning and Green Mango Pest Control. Stay tuned for real stories, struggles, insight, and advice from real entrepreneurs in real time.
What's going on, and welcome to the Premium Mindset. If you will notice again, I do not have my regular co-host and really good friend. More of, he benefits from my friendship primarily, but we're missing Cameron today. But I am so excited for who we have today, and it's Frandy. And I remember saying that name a few times when I was like, there's no way it's actually Frandy, the first time I reached out to you. But Frandy with Mission Barbers has been my barber for the last year and a half. And what I am so excited about and really excited to get into is his story, because I love it, on how he started Mission Barbers and where they're going now and what he's doing with some product lines, as well as his community outreach is unparalleled. And what I love most about him, two things: he's always so happy, and he's such a good family man. And I think someone who has learned, at least on the surface, to look like they're balancing everything is someone to watch closely and say, how can I as a business owner kind of duplicate and replicate what he's doing? And so, Frandy, I'm so excited to have you on. I just got a haircut today from your team, and super excited to have you on, man.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. I know, and when we met, like you said, like a year and a half ago, you meet somebody, you just feel like it clicks. Yeah. Like I felt that like right away with you. We did that event at you invited me to do that event at Coconut, and then getting to know you like more and more. You're just like one of those people that I've quickly like admire. Then when you started doing the podcast, I would literally listen to you and Cameron speak like several times. I have it on repeat because it's just amazing. So it's an honor for me to be here.
I really appreciate that. And I think what's so funny about like my initial experience with you is, and despite the podcast, I am extremely private, and more so just I like to check in with other people. But when people check in with me, I got my talking points, and that's what I leave it to. And I remember telling a few people when I came back from seeing a barber for the first time, I'm like, man, he talks. Like he made me talk. I thought I was going there, and like at Great Clips, they don't say a word to me. I pay my $10 or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm in and out 5-10 minutes. I look like I just got out of middle school with some of my haircuts, but I didn't mind. And then with you, it was like 45 minutes, and my usual talking points were gone. And it's 10 minutes in. I'm like, I don't think he's still got a little bit to go. I'm like, all right, fine. Here's a little bit about my life. And so I feel like what I would love the audience to know, because I loved hearing about it, is what is your story in starting Mission Barbers? And I guess at what point in your life did you say, I want to cut hair? Because it wasn't always this.
No.
And so what was the evolution of like growing up? Like, hey, I started doing this, started a family, and then I left this state and came here and started cutting hair. What's that story,
Thank you. I'll try to give you the executive, the cliff notes of the executive version. So I first started cutting hair my junior year in high school.
Okay.
It's only like 2 years
Why?
ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, that was back like in 95.
Oh, there you go. I wasn't born yet.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I was 5 years old.
And I started cutting my friend's hair because, like fades just started coming out and like some kids will be getting like the 1 or 2 lines in the side. My parents are really strict. And they're like, yeah, you could get a fade with like a number 8 on the sides. And I was like, no, I want it short, and they would say no. And I'll go to the local barber shop and I was like, hey, do it short. Say that I moved. They're like, no, we know your family, So I was like, right, I'm going to learn how to cut my friends' hair that are daring enough. I'm going to get good enough where I could do their hair. Then I'm going to do my own. And I'm going to accidentally cut it too short.
Oops.
That was like my sole purpose in learning how to cut hair at first. It quickly evolved because I started doing my teammates in like basketball, football, baseball, the coaches and the dean of students. And this was in New York. And then, it just evolved.
Walk me through that. Was it like, hey guys, I want to do it for free? Or did all of a sudden you cut someone's hair and they just handed you $10 and you're like, wait a sec.
No, it was just for free. It was just like for a good time. Some guys would give me like $1, like $3 at the time, but I wasn't asking for it. I just wanted experience. That's all it was.
You're like, I can't charge you for it. I just did.
Yeah. So, so it started like that. And then some of my friends that still had that had some facial hair in high school, they will go to the local barber to get the edge up done with the straight razor because I didn't know how to do that. So they will go to the barber and their barber will be like, hey, I see you guys just had a fresh haircut. Like, not too bad, but why isn't it finished? Like, why are you still coming here for the edge up? And like, oh, it's Frandy that does our hair. So next time I went to get my hair cut, he asked me and I said, well, I just have this really cheap edge up machine. He fixed one of his older machines and gave it to me. And then he was like, here, use this. It should help you out. But before and after your haircuts or whenever you want, come here, clean, watch me, and I'll verbally tell you what I'm doing and why. You can't cut anybody's hair here, but I'll explain to you. And then it evolved. And now this is fast forward like a year and a half. It's about a week before I'm going to go away to college in Connecticut. And I'm in there late afternoon for my haircut. And then he was like, hey, I want you to do this next client and then just send me a page when you're done and I'll go ahead and fix it. I need to go to the restaurant across the street to get something to fix my stomach. So I did it. He didn't have to fix anything. And he's like, whenever you want to come back home to visit your family, call me the night before and I'll have a station ready for you so you can make some more money than your work study job.
Wow.
I did it, made some money. I called my family and friends and I looked like a busy barber that day.
Yeah.
And then my parents brought me and my roommate back to Connecticut that Sunday night. Monday morning, I went to the computer lab and I made these little flyers that said New York's Finest. And I spread it out throughout the whole campus.
Dang.
And I was like, hey, room 201, West Hall. And I changed my voice message greeting. And I used to be up to like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning every night, cutting hair in my dorm room, going to school full time, head back to New York and cut hair in the barbershop Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, back to school again. And I kept that going for like 3 years.
Okay, then, real quick.
Yeah.
With haircut.
Yeah.
Walk me through what it looked like back in the day for getting your hands on that equipment. And I don't mean to make it sound like it was the Stone Age, but I can go to Walmart or Target and there's a whole aisle for just a bag that comes with all the settings, a few scissors that I don't know what to do anything with, a brush that I don't know what to, use it for. Back in 95 all the way up to early 2000s, like, was it a generic hair clipper that was like the thing, or like was it like it is now and there was just a lot of different things to buy?
No, you had like different companies, but I just started off with the Wall, which was like common, and they have different levels. So I just started off with the same home kits that you get now, like $30, and it comes with a cape that's like a garbage bag.
Okay.
And at times I would use a garbage bag and cut a hole in it. And, and that was
it.
Put the head in there, they'll be sweating underneath, and that's how it started. And then the barber gave me.
So how did you go to New York's Finest, man? That's a bold claim.
Oh, so
Room
I was in Connecticut.
New York's Finest.
Yeah.
Like, were you that confident? Like,
no, I was just like, let's do this. I saw who was around, and I was like, I'm gonna get their attention. And
you're like, I didn't say we were the finest at.
Yeah, exactly.
Just come and get your haircut with us.
I was. Yeah, looking back, I was like, whoa, that was a bold. But there was no barbershops near there. There was the city of Bridgeport But most of the students, like, they were staying there on campus.
And you're getting paid at this point?
Yeah, I was charging like $5 at that point.
And that's equivalent, back, times, it's probably what, like $40-$50 back then, or what?
Yeah.
Were you like swimming in the money, or was it like?
When I was going, it helped, but then when I was working in the barber shop in New York, I was making decent money. So when I look back, I'm like, hey, I had a work study job. I was doing, cutting hair on the weekends. Then by my senior year, I started working for PricewaterhouseCoopers in their, Bristol Myers Squibb at that time, in the IT department with my internship.
Right. That's what I was going to ask. How'd you make the transition from doing all this to getting into IT?
Yeah. So I graduated school, but I was still
What was
cutting
the
hair.
degree in?
Computer science.
Okay.
Yep. Computer science, but like more the information side, so more the business side. Yeah. And then after like a year after graduation, proposed to my wife. We met at school. And now at this time, I was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Okay.
In their global IT team.
Yeah.
And just had a passion still for cutting hair. Right.
Are you doing this at night, on the weekends?
Like on the weekends. And shortly thereafter, that's when we moved to Arizona in 2003. And then at that point, I was just doing family and friends. And
still doing IT.
Still doing IT.
Was the move IT related?
No, it was more like for family and just trying something different. Because I didn't want to stay stuck in that tri-state area. I was like, hey, let's go explore. Go explore.
So at what point did it click for you that you're starting a business? Did the LLC follow years after? Taxes, obviously, we try to stay under the radar as long as possible. But then you're like, hey, I want to start accepting card payments, checks, whatever it might be. So at what point did you realize I have a business here?
Yeah, it wasn't. So it's funny. So I didn't open a Mission Barbers till 4.5 years ago.
Okay, wow.
Yeah,
that's
right around, because that whole time I was doing IT work, doing really well, 6 figures, also did my MBA, finished that in 2015, 16.
MBA in?
Master's in Business Administration.
Yeah.
With a concentration in project management.
That's okay.
Moved to DC with a big company, startup, but turned into a really big company. And that's when I went through depression and everything. But in the back of my mind,
I don't want to go. Hold on.
No, we'll dig deep into that. But that's a whole nother.
Yeah. Don't let that go under the radar. But
yeah, the whole time, even when I was in high school and in college, I saw hey, I'm having fun cutting hair. I'm making some extra money. It will help with with things. But I always associated the career of barbering with the lifestyle of the barbers that I saw around me in New York, and I was like, I really didn't want to be that type of family or person, right?
Yeah.
Or into some of those things. So I wrongfully associated a lifestyle with a career.
Interesting.
And in my head, I was like, hey, I want to be their project manager. I want to have that corner office. I want to travel around and do business consulting and things like that. So it wasn't until when we moved to DC that I really hit depression and anxiety where I could hardly function. We moved back to Arizona 2 years later. And
hold on, Frank. You keep letting me see. Okay, 1 second, man.
Yeah.
What I love so much about you is I know it might be extremely intentional. You just might be in habit now with who you are and your mindset.
Yeah.
But people do and don't understand that the product of who you are and everything that you've done is thousands and thousands of micro habits that you create, and it's being intentional about where you're letting your mind wander. And I just want to ask, and again, you go as deep or wherever you want to go with it, but what was it about the move to DC? Because in my experience with understanding depression and anxiety, I think those are really kind of convoluted a lot, and they're brought together as if they're entirely the same thing. Mm-hmm. But what was it about the move to DC where you're like, how are you recognizing a change in your body, saying I'm experiencing something and something's off? What was happening?
Yeah, so I felt I would feel nervousness in my knees, physically, I would feel that. Just questioning
while you were working?
While I was working, or even at home, or sitting down. Let's say if I was having a conversation, if we were having a conversation, I would feel almost that tension here. but I noticed it in like every day, like outside of work and in work, like questioning and like doubting, like the littlest like decisions that I would make like that. Like I was overthinking and doubting everything, things that I knew, things that were just like routine and things that had like no weight. I was overthinking them as if it was like
And you had no
life-changing.
prior history of doing that.
No.
And nothing had happened with the move to DC that, maybe you made a wrong decision and you saw the consequence. It's like I knew of a more distant family member who got his driver's license and he hit a garbage can. And when everyone heard it, it's like, okay, he didn't drive for a couple of years because he's like, what if that was a person?
Wow.
And I hit this, I hit this garbage. What if that was a person? And so was there anything like that on the move to DC that like one little ripple effect where you started questioning yourself because of something, or did it just kind of pop up out of nowhere?
I think it kind of popped up, and I was with the company for about a year and a half, had a great time there. And we wanted to go back east to like show our kids something different. And the headquarters was out there. We had a small satellite office in Scottsdale. So we were signing bigger contracts, at bigger hospitals and things like that. We were in the telemedicine space. I think it was like that pressure of these expectations that I was putting on myself by moving to the headquarters, being alongside C-suite, being in charge of these like bigger projects and implementations. And then the same, like on a personal side, like for my family, like I felt like even more responsible for them, or everything has to be perfect with the house, when we get set up and get moved in and everything like that. It was this like false expectation that everything has to be perfect in all levels of my life. And like, it's not true. It's not like, that's wrong to think that way,
How many kids at this point?
4.
In DC? No,
4.
in DC.
Yeah, we had 4 at that point.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So New York, you proposed and got married?
Mm-hmm.
And then you moved to Arizona. Any kids yet?
No kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so all the kids are born in Arizona?
Yep.
You go to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
You start noticing in yourself that I think that's great. You're self-aware enough to know like there's a physical change in my physiology of how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And did you spend time trying to recognize the moments that came up, or was it, this is happening and I need to remove myself from wherever I'm at, and it became a ripple effect? Like, did performance get compromised because of this anxiety and depression?
It did, because I was going through, it was like this cyclic climatic disorder where it's like I'm on 1 week, like, and then down the next week. And I didn't know which, is this going to be an up week or a down week? But it was going on for like 2 years where it was hard to function. And let me see, go back to the first question.
Yeah, I was curious if you just, the kids are all born in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
You have that dynamic that you put on yourself. Is it necessarily a standard of performance that you want to achieve at the highest level, or was it you actually did have a few managers that said, hey, we're counting on you for this account? Was it something like that, or was it all just what you expected of yourself?
It was more of what I expected of myself. Yeah.
And what did the dynamics look like for you? Because I feel like what seems very difficult about the situation is that at first it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start having the results show up in your real life of your work performance going down, wife checking in on you, maybe the kids are saying dad's a little different, you actually start finding validation in those things that something is wrong. Yep. And it kind of, it's a cyclical thing that happens.
Yeah.
And so did you have a constant at that time of like your wife or your kids, or like, like, how did you center yourself in that time, or did you not center yourself?
I tried to center myself. My wife was like always by my side and like that rock. We were really close and involved with our church at that time. So that helped me. So I would say like my wife and, like family support and like our community support, like quite honestly, like kept me alive,
What's your advice to anybody out there listening that maybe currently going through this, because I feel like us men are often stereotyped as cavemen, like we don't really know our emotions, and hey, how was your day? Good. Ooh, whatever. What are some key takeaways that you can reflect on now that really helped your dynamic with your wife? Was it the questions she was asking?
Mm-hmm.
Was it how open you were being? What's your advice to anybody out there who might be currently struggling and they don't know how to tell their spouse because they don't want to be deemed as like weak or less than? And what's your advice for them?
That's a great question. I would sincerely say is just openly communicate. Like, don't worry about what, she or he may think of you or about like feeling like less, but it's more important that you're open in your communication on what you're going through, and having people like, a close circle of like friends that you could talk to and like share that with, like some buddies, and then your spouse or partner. And depending if like maybe like the age of your kids, if it's appropriate, like to talk to them about it, but it's okay to talk. And nobody, just let go of that expectation that we're supposed to be perfect. I think that we should be always trying to improve in all areas of our life, but that doesn't mean you're supposed to be perfect. And don't put that like burden like on yourself, because things are easier when you do it. Like, I feel like in community and you're upfront about it, the same way like in business, like you and Cam, like I'm sure you guys talk about like the struggles and everything. And it's easier doing it together because that person has their own experience and knowledge to help you. Like, hey, I don't have to do this alone, or think of these solutions on your own. So the same way, like if somebody's going through these like emotional and mental things, like don't do it alone. There's people here to support you.
I appreciate you sharing that. Do you have any pointers for something that your wife did that really helped you? That, again, another portion of the audience might be someone that, hey, I'm good, but my entrepreneurial husband is struggling, or I'm the entrepreneur in the family, and my husband or my wife is struggling with that and I'm not. Was there something that your wife did that really stuck out to you as like that, not necessarily single-handedly, but this was one of the big things that you did for me that really helped me at the time?
That's good. Because actually I remember for a year, like I would say about a year and a half, 2 years before you did that move to DC, my wife, she's always been really good at it, but like working on things for her self-care, whether if it was like fitness or like meditation or like reading or like self-development, right? And she would always tell me like, hey, go spend time with your friends, or like, like do these things. And I always thought, no, any spare time that I have is to make more money, like grow this business or do whatever it is, or like get another degree or spend time with my family, which it's great. But like I was neglecting like me. So then when I was going through that, I was like, oh, this is what you're talking about. That's self-care. And where I always thought it was like selfish for me to do that. No, it's the other way. And then work on yourself, and now you can pour back more into your family, the community, the business. I was like, oh, this is what you're talking about. Like sometimes those guys like, well, like you said, like we'll hold certain emotions in, and then we might be set on something, and like we don't sometimes see like, hey, like we need to like adjust, right?
Kate's so good at like pulling me out of my own, like helping me get out of my own way. I'm like, I need to just work tonight. And she's like, well, we're going to go to the gym first. I'm like, but I'm not going to, get the work done that I need to. We're going to go to the gym. And then we're going to eat a healthy meal, and then you can go back to work. And I'm finding like I go to the gym and then I think through some of the things as we're just doing a workout. I'm like, that doesn't really need to be addressed tonight. That's not that big
huge.
Of a deal.
That is huge.
And she helps me detach.
That's huge.
And so for anyone out there, if you have a partner or a friend that's really going through it, I think good reminders for them on the basics. It's the principle of putting on your oxygen mask first. And I feel like that was huge for you. And I've seen it in my own life, where that gentle reminder of someone saying, hey, like, I love the joke of, I feel really sad these days. Have you drank water? Have you gone outside? Have you exercised? Have you read a book? Have you talked to a friend or family member? They're like, no. Okay. Help yourself out. So that's something that she was really good at reminding you and helping you with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love
that. Absolutely.
And so what did the conversation look like for you with work to say, I need to go back to Arizona? Actually, were you cutting hair in DC?
No.
None.
Well, let me see. For not for income, but that's where I started volunteering cutting hair.
Interesting. Where would you volunteer?
At like a foster home, doing fundraisers for veterans and first responders. And then I wasn't doing the haircuts for homeless wasn't until I came back. So it's for kids in foster homes and veterans.
I love that. So was that intentional for you to reach outside of yourself and get lost in the service of others, or what was the original reason behind that?
One of my friends invited me. He had a moving company back there, and he invited me. He's like, "Hey, you know how to cut hair?" And he invited me. He's like, "Hey, let's have a good time. We'll bring the kids some pizza, cut their hair." And he's like, "See if you know of a girl that's a cosmetologist, so she can maybe do some of the other kids like makeup and the females' hair and stuff like that." And even my wife and the kids came. We played games with the kids, and it was a blast. And I was like, "Whoa! Like this felt really good, not being focused on myself, but focused outwards." And then to me, that was like one of the game changers. His name is Terry Williams.
Out in there,
in Virginia, Northern Virginia.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was where like the community outreach started.
Yep.
So you didn't even know it, but you're like, man, this is probably one of the most therapeutic self-care things, taking care of others.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I believe wholeheartedly in that, in my own ways of service. And I appreciate you bringing that up because that'll make more sense when we talk about what you're doing now. But okay, you're in DC 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're deciding to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Are you staying with the same company moving back to Arizona?
No, about 8 months in of me moving, the company that I was with, that was once a startup, got really big and then got bought out got acquired by like a bigger telemedicine company.
Okay.
I right away I had another job, like lined up. So I didn't think, even at that point, I was like, oh no, I'm still not gonna cut hair, full time. But the seed started getting, even more planted.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's do this in steps and, figure things out.
I love it. So why go back to Arizona?
Our mother-in-law passed away that summer when my wife and I and our oldest daughter were doing like a mission trip similar to like a Habitat for Humanity for a week long. She got sick, passed away that summer. And then my kids really still love that area of the country. So we're like, all right, let's just stay. Our father-in-law got sick like 2 months later. He's okay now and dancing the night away. Okay. But once he got sick, it was just like, hey, like, what are we doing? Let's go back to the family. All the mental health stuff that I was going through was really heavy for my wife and the family too. So we're like, maybe it's the sunshine and being around our friends.
Yeah.
Let's try going back.
Okay. So you go back. Are you in IT again?
I'm still doing like a program manager role and not really doing any better, even when inpatient, again. And then I was just like at a crossroad where I was like, I need a sabbatical, but I know I still want to work to feel like that sense of like accomplishment. And then that's where I, just sat down with my wife and she's like, well, do you think you cut hair for a little bit? So I was like, yeah, let me just do it for a few months. But in my head, I was like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to blow this out of the water. We're going to do it for real. But I was still at a friend's shop. And then after a few months of being there, I just felt like, this is not the right vibe that I want, for me and like for our like clients and as we grow this. So I convinced her to let me sign a lease on a small place, and that's where it started.
Well, walk me through, because I'm so excited to get into the Mission Barber, the actual like founding of that. Walk me through what I love so much about you, Frandy, as you're explaining this, is that you still showed up and worked. Uh-huh. And you still were trying to find ways to get better, get happier. What was there like a turning point for you that you learned a practice or a coping mechanism or breath work or meditation? You say, hey, for me, this really got me grounded and refocused. Was there something at that time, or you're still not there yet? You're just going to start cutting hair. And is that where like everything really started getting recalibrated?
Yeah.
Okay.
That helped out. There was a lot of things that when I decided to like leave my corporate like job or like career, at least like temporarily, that I felt like, all right, I needed like to like slow down, focus on myself. And that's when I started like realizing more like the self-care. Right. And I was like, all right, I have to do these things and like hit it hard, like do it because I may only have so much time to like see if this works. And definitely like pausing and like, like some of the breath work or just trying to be present, whether if it's at work, like with that client or with my family, just really try to be present. I felt like it was like a second chance.
Yeah.
With some other things also with my family, because it affected our marriage like big time. Right before we moved to DC, when I wasn't working on myself, and I was like, okay, like if we, when we move, then this will kind of like reinvigorize everything. Then we went through all that, came back, and I was like, all right, grateful to be alive, grateful to be here, grateful to, to still be, together and have my family. But I saw that it was like, I felt like we're walking like a fine line. So it was like a turning point where I was like, almost didn't have a choice. Like if I want to go like make things better, like this is what I have to do.
Yeah. Back up against the wall.
Yeah. Back up against the wall and just be present in every little thing that I was doing.
You have such a beautiful family. When people go to Mission Barbers and they see like the little line of your kids lined up and all holding a musical instrument, and I what I love so much too is it seems like your wife was played a big foundational role for you. Mm-hmm. What was that dynamic for you looking like right now, where you felt like you were walking on, a fine line, but we wear all these different titles and hats throughout our life, and your husband, your father, your employee, your founder. What was the relationship with your kids at that time? Because it's like, hey, I want to be open and vulnerable with my kids. Mm-hmm. But also there's this thing going around on social media that's really resonated well with me, which is the idea that every battle that I choose to push off to the side is a battle that my kids are going to have to fight one day. Mm. And I've always loved the idea that, hey, if I'm struggling internally or with a form of anxiety or whatever it might be, that if I don't learn for myself, it may not be the same copy and paste for them, mm-hmm. but if I quit, like they're going to have to fight their own battles with maybe the same thing. And if I want to be that role model for them, like I want to come out on top. Yeah. And I want to come out like I want to be swinging. Uh-huh. And I want to make sure my kids know, like, dad fights for what he believes in. What's the relationship with the kids when you're struggling mentally? Everything's a little warped. Yeah. What are you saying to the kids to help them understand, like, hey, this is where I'm at, and I'm also still your dad, and you're not supposed to be anything more than just my kid. And what does it look like?
It was I want to say like complicated during that time, but it was definitely hard. But they saw me like through those struggles. The ones that are like a little older now, they may not remember as much, but my two oldest daughters, I remember them like helping me get out of bed. Yeah. And like struggling at times, like for the simplest decisions. So they were aware. So being open and communicating with them of like, if I'm feeling something or, oh, I think this would really help me if we do this one thing together, like let's just walk the dog together, because maybe that's what I had in my head. Like I'm going to do like one little thing. Yeah. It's like these little steps, like these little like milestones, and just like check it off, and just keep on doing that every day. And now all of a sudden you have like all these like accomplishments, right? So
stacking the wins
and letting them know. Because sometimes we're like, oh, Dad, we don't want to do that. That's stupid. Or I got to do. I'm like, hey, I just need this win. And I would tell them straight up like that. Like, let's just do this with me. And then we'll go on to do something else that you want, or whatever it is, or let me adjust what I thought was a win. Let's do, but just like really looking at every opportunity as a win, even from like dressing yourself. And I'm not like picky. I should be pickier
You're
like on
a
how I dress and
fresh guy.
everything. No,
Look at the shoes you wear,
no.
man.
I always admire the way you come in.
Yeah.
But it's like little things like that, and they've seen me struggle with things like that. So like really being grateful for every little like decision that I have to make, because I remember struggling, like even at the grocery store of picking like. And my wife, she's not like picky, like, oh, like these type of flowers or anything. She's not really into like flowers that much, because she's like, oh, they're gonna die. But I still like to do that for her. But I remember like being in the grocery store for like an hour, and her calling me like, what's going on? And I was frozen, looking at flowers, or even like what type of nuts to get like for a salad. Like it was like that. So like remembering what I was feeling, how I used to feel, and not to make decisions. Okay, I will give myself like 5 seconds. I forgot the name of this like speaker.
Mel Robbins, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, and there was like a female that was like speaker, and I used to like do this count off in my head, and then I had it on my computer screen, like up top, like in a little sticker, and I would just give myself 5 seconds, and boom, and then things started changing.
Yeah, I love that. I remember the first year of Coconut. I don't know where it really stemmed from or how it happened, because I'm embarrassed of like what it looks like if people didn't understand the internal dialogue in my head. But I gave up so much to start this business, and was making phenomenal money, 6 figures, and had everything that I wanted. But I remember starting the business, and I went shopping, like grocery shopping for the first time. And I remember, because of the finances, having to like actually count, okay, that's $5, that's this. I know that this is much as and there was something about that I just started getting anxiety about the situation, and I ditched the cart. Mm-hmm. And I hate what that sounds like, because it's like I just gave some employee, all this work of having a full cart, and I just left. And it happened like 3 or 4 more times where I just, for no reason, the money was there and I was staying in balance, but it was the situation that I was in where I was just so overwhelmed, and I'm getting groceries and I'm counting. I'm like, hey, we have $100. I'm gonna get this, and this, and that leaves me with $10 left. And I just would like freeze, and I would leave.
Yep.
And I don't know entirely. Yeah, I don't know entirely what was going on, but it sounds like, with you freezing at the store.
Yeah, same thing.
There's not much rationale to it on why it happens, but it does happen. Mm-hmm. And what I look forward to hearing now is one, coping mechanisms, but you come back to Arizona and you said you convinced her to get a lease. Mm-hmm. So at this point, you're pretty good at cutting hair then. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. This is 2019, 2018?
Yeah, 2019.
Okay. So what does that look like when you say, can I get a little office space to start cutting hair? Did you even conceptualize Mission Barbers yet?
Yeah, so I came up with the name Mission Barbers. I remember we were in a little coffee shop in Virginia at that time, because that seed was like already like planted. Like, hey, one day I think I'm gonna open up a barbershop, and we could create like what we want.
And why Mission?
Because I felt like it's our mission to make you look and feel your best, so that you can share the best version of yourself with others. And then also with because of the volunteer work that we do, like in the community. So I didn't want to call it volunteer barbers, because it'll be like
free barbers,
free haircuts, yeah. But those are the 2 main reasons.
I love that. I don't know if that's like an actual mission statement, but like
it
that
is.
needs to go on a wall somewhere.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so you say, I want to start this and I want to go, and you said earlier that this was the time where like I need to make this one count. Mm-hmm. What was that conversation? Was there parameters in play for, okay, like we're gonna get it for this long, but if it doesn't do this well, then we're pulling out? Like, what did that conversation look like?
Yeah, we didn't have like a dead set like date, like after like, let's say like go live or whatever, but it was just like, hey, we're gonna watch this closely. It may be like temporary, but in my head I was like, I'm gonna go all out, and this is gonna work. And I've been cutting hair for so long, and I've seen so many like different environments, not just in the barber industry, but in different like corporate environments, from sales to project management, that I was like, I'm gonna pull from things that I've learned from these different leaders and these different like organizations of different sizes, and I'm gonna incorporate that into this business. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna fail.
Yeah.
you know, and I'm going to network and I'm going to meet some great people and I'm going to have, I know what my weaknesses are, but I'm going to surround myself with
Could you share
people.
a weakness or two of your, I guess, what weakness was going through your mind at the time as you were starting the business? Finances. Was it the structure of finances? Was it allocation where you wanted to put money to grow? What bill gets paid first? Was it things like that?
Yeah, like that. And I was just used to like, okay, like work, and the money's gonna flow, right? But just handling finances. So I was like, right away, I'm gonna have a bookkeeper. I'm gonna have a separate accountant. They're gonna work together, you know, collaborate. This way, I have more eyes in the business, and then I'm gonna network, and just, I don't know, like see like different qualities in different people, and just have my eyes open and aware, and just kind of almost like create this like team in my head, which you're on.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, and like I said, like from early on, like I admired you.
I'm proud to give all the things what not to do in business.
No,
I'm happy to be on that panel playing that role.
Yeah. Yep.
I appreciate that, Frandy. So at what point is it conceptualized? You get the key to your little, is it this place? Mm-hmm. That's where you started? Mm-hmm. That same room?
In the back. All the way in the back.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Where the like restroom is or what?
Yeah, by the restroom, and there's like little room that I could like probably touch all walls, like spreading out like this.
So when starting a business, and you know, for people watching, I've seen certain people have the concept down, but they don't know the how to. I've had people who are great at branding and they know what the title of the company is going to look like, the font, but they don't even know what the business is really. Mm-hmm. So you get the key to your business, you walk into that empty room. Mm-hmm. What's going through your mind on the next steps? Is it, what can I do for free in terms of marketing silos to get the most amount of customers? Was it, I need to reach out to friends and family and say, spread the word. Mm-hmm. New York's finest is now Arizona's finest, and we're Mission Barbers. What was going through your mind when you got the key to that empty room?
So when we moved back, and then, you know, and I was thinking about maybe like cutting hair, right? Once I like kind of had in my head, hey, we're going to get this space. So that was like October, November. We opened doors January 14th. And again, I was just by myself.
January 14th, 2019?
2020 now.
2020.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I can't wait to hear what March and April looks like.
Yeah. So I had it, you know, I had my Pinterest board of like decor. So I just started imagining myself and then like working on like meditation and the mental health things, like just envision things. So I would just envision like what the room and the experience would look like. And then I just kind of like worked my way, like what are the things that I need?
You're like cigars.
In the room. Yeah, like just have cigars if somebody wants that.
And then, you know, and then the picture of the family. And then, okay. And you have your books up there in your little corner. And
because I was imagining like take one, leave one kind of like shelf where I would have start off with some books and some people will be like, hey, you know, this is a great book, you know, and then take one, leave one and everything like that. And just so like community environment.
Was it pretty granular, your thoughts with, I want this here, I want to do this, all for the customer experience. And this is how I want to create this space. And this is what I want my customers to feel.
Exactly. That was it. It was all around the customers feeling, because I wanted to create raving fans.
I love that. From, what is that? The Arbinger Institute or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that Kim Blanchard's book. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So financially, you can, again, speak to as much or as little as you'd like. Mm-hmm. Were you guys in a position where it's like, hey, I'm just going to get everything I need? Because I imagine those chairs aren't cheap. Mm-hmm. You know, marketing's not cheap.
We had it cheap. We sold our house in Virginia. We really didn't have. I had like so little like money to like for the business. Like, hey, let's do the chair. I remember my one of my uncles like got me like the chandelier. It was like, let's start off with the most basic things. Like, what do I need? I was like, I don't need a lot of fancy things.
Because of that area of weakness you pointed out, are you talking to your wife? Or are you calling your accountant? Like, when you make those little decisions, was it like, hey, I can make this decision? Or you're like, hey, honey, like, this is what I'm thinking comes next. Yeah. And then she helps kind of at a 10,000 foot view say, well, so-and-so could probably install that for you, or we could do that ourselves. Like, what were those conversations like?
Yeah, it was simple. It was just kind of like, all right, like how much you think you need to start? I was like, all right, I need my chair. you know, like the counter, I want a simplistic look. So we did like a live edge. So I picked one up like in Mesa, and then I like, you know, like planed it and did all that stuff.
Yeah,
Stained it myself.
I love it.
Yeah. So just started off basic. Like, what are the minimal, like, what do I need? Keep it super simple. Okay. That's it. And then it was like, okay, she sat me down in the living room one day. I remember she's like, you're not opening your business until you have an online booking platform. You're going to pick 2 tonight. You're not leaving the couch. You're going to pick 2 tonight, and you're going to start demoing them, and you have 2 weeks to come back, you know, to let me know. I'm like, oh man. I was like, no, like kicking and screaming. I don't want that. You know, I want all the control myself. And she's like, no, do an online booking system. So I did it. And it was just like, hey, like,
I slept on the couch that night.
Yeah. Like, what's the most basic thing? And then we just started like that and then built on it. But even from the menu of like the services offered, it's like, all right, I don't need to know beforehand what type of haircut the client wants. Just is it just a haircut, or is it a haircut and beard? You know, and I want to have some type of like luxury package with face mask. Okay, great. That's the third item. And then a kid's haircut. Make it simple for them, simple for me. Let's sit, have that consultation, and just give them the best experience possible, and just make it simple.
We talk about bandwidth a lot in business, and my business partner and I, we come from 2 different worlds, where pest control is, hey, we have these bullet points and this is what needs to be done. And the bandwidth is primarily measured off of what our company standards are for the performance and the size of the home. Coconut is a different beast, because our model, we wouldn't be a company if we only went in for the promotional offers that we give. Like, we have to add additional services. So our bandwidth is measured by, yes, we have our cleaning process, but we know that we're a good, better, best company when we go from a $300 job average to $400. And then we say, what were all the $400 jobs that we did, and how long on average does it take us? So when did the wheels start turning for you? Because I feel like a barber, if you got no one on the schedule and one person coming in at 11, you could probably talk their ear off if you wanted to. So how do you measure bandwidth in your business when you start scaling? Because there's got to be so many variables to it, with the type of haircut, the condition of their hair, what kind of experience do you want your barbers giving your people? And so hey guys, I want it non-negotiable. I want you talking to our people, asking them how their day is. Like, how are you starting to compute growth as it pertains to scaling this thing and getting bigger, and knowing how many customers it would take to get another barber?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I never want anybody in the team and any client to ever feel like that they need to like rush, right? But at the same time, I want people feeling comfortable, but I don't want the barber to feel like they have to talk to the client like so much, because some clients, they may just want to sleep, or they may not be like talkers, right? But I want you like focusing on what you're there to do, is to cut their hair and kind of like play off of the client and build a relationship with them, right? What I would say, like, one of the, like, I guess, like, to answer your question, like, one of the struggles, like, let's say, like, for me, like, being like the finances, was I had these ideas of things that I wanted to do in the business, and I felt like, hey, I'm not gonna start off with like this big barbershop, right? Because of the lack of money that I had, or like capital, right? But it taught me like patience to like do things in scale. So when I started off for myself, now, you know, January 2020, I started getting booked out far in advance, and then COVID happened. But I started seeing how many calls we were getting through like one of our business apps.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, once we're turning away, let's say like 8 to 10 calls a day, I know those are walk-ins that we're turning away, or that we're getting. So if I had another barber, that could like fill that person's schedule. And also more people were probably jumping off the platform online that I'm not seeing. But that was, to me,
because they just look at your schedule, they see that they can't see you for 2 weeks, and then they're like, okay, I need to go elsewhere.
Yep. So like I would say like what I was measuring and like always keep an eye on is how many walk-ins we were turning away that day. So around when we're on the like 8 to 10 like phone calls that we can't take, or like reschedule, I'm like, okay, I could keep another barber busy, and they could be successful, take care of their family, whatever it is, but they could be busy and they're not going to be sitting twiddling their thumbs waiting for somebody.
How have you, because if you guys look up Mission Barbers, they are 5-star reviews. And in the service industry, I'm not saying it's very, very hard, but it's pretty difficult to please everyone. How have you managed, if someone comes in and sees Frandy in 2020, I imagine they're going to have the best experience. But now I have to scale and I have to grow, and I'm going to have another barber with me. Are you picky with who you bring onto the team because you want them to be an extension of that experience that you want them to have? And how do you maintain that 5-star experience as you scale?
Yeah. So yeah, I have to be selective, and I've made, maybe not the best hires, right? But it's part of the process and the journey. But I've been fortunate now, like looking at it of the way that we've scaled, like slowly, like one barber at a time. It lets me like teach that barber, like, create these like, not, I want to say like policies and procedures, but almost like this little playbook of like the culture that I want and like what I look for, like those KPIs. And it's not just like numbers, but it's like, it could be the experience with the clients, how they collaborate with their teammates. Right? Like when I go over the KPIs, I show them like numbers of the business, like the returning clients, but that's not really what I focus on. Because if you do all those other things, like those character type of things, and like if you're compassionate with them, are you helping out your teammates? Like then the production is gonna go up.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that.
So I think having that in mind, training them, being alongside them, and like empowering them to be able to to do that and carry it out and have like their almost like sense of like ownership because they have like their space, and making them feel good about that. Not just like, hey, that you're just an employee. Like, no, like I'm counting on you to like carry this forward. And those reviews that we have and that trust that we have with the clients that come here, those parents that leave their kids and then they're like, hey, I need to go run to Target across the street while I do some errands. Do you mind? I tell the barbers, I was like, think about that. Like they're trusting you with their child that they love. And I'm counting on you to provide like a good, safe environment from conversation to music to everything. Like to carry that forward. And then they feel good. So just slowly building on that, I think has been like key. So then this year I've just been working more like on the documentation piece of it and making the reviews more
operating procedures and
like monthly reviews instead of quarterly.
Okay. I think you guys have done such a good job. I often quote the African proverb of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I love every member of your team. They're just phenomenal. Manny is one of my favorite people. Don't know what he's saying half the time, but Manny Scissorhands, he's just he's just always got a smile, and they are an extension of you. Even to where that, at one point recently, like somebody had left the team and, Costa was like, yeah, he wasn't a good fit for the team. And it's just like for them to know that, like they're also helping you with that vetting process as well.
Yeah.
And as it pertains to reviews, do you remember your first 1-star review, if you've ever gotten one?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I remember. So it was hard, to like see it, but then, I like to reach out to clients for the good reviews, bad reviews, whatever. And some of those reviews happen when, it's like another barber, right?
Yeah.
So there was times that I reached out to a client because maybe the barber told me like, hey, I don't think that client had a good experience. They didn't seem happy. And then I reached out to the client. And then later on, I found out that they left a 1-star review. Sometimes those clients took it off because they're like, man, or they changed it from 1-star to a 5-star just because we proactively reached out to them. And I was like, hey, let me take care of it. Let me fix it. Let's see, but just show compassion.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, to me, that's been what's been the most helpful.
You're so good at that because there's been a few times where I need to get a haircut because I'm reminded I need to get a haircut. Okay. Yeah. And I do show up and I'm in my head. And what I love about you, Frandy, is like every time I've been in my head, you're like, hey, you seem in your head. Do you want to talk about it? And I'm like, no. But then other times, I've like fallen asleep in the chair, or I'm just so tired. But I don't think there's ever been a time where you haven't like reached out when something felt, even not even about the experience with you. It's just more so me. Like, hey man, like you seemed off. I hope you're well. Saw your last social media post. Like, let me know if you need anything. Yeah, and that's just been the mantra with you, and I've always appreciated that.
Man. I appreciate
that,
you,
man. Appreciate you. I'm curious now. Okay, if you go to Mission Barbers over here off Gilbert and Germain, immediately to the left is their first office. I've seen over just the last year and a half, office, and then now another one. Yeah,
three total.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So. You're like, at times you've been like, hey, I'm going to get the next one. I'm going to get that person's leaving. I'm going to get that office. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome. What has it been like for you to say, man, I really trust this team. Now I'm going to start dabbling in some other things that I'm really excited to talk about. Actually, real quick, how have you got that team bought in on community outreach? Because you guys do so much cool stuff. How do you let the team know, like, this is important to me? I know you guys will benefit, so we're going to go over here. Yeah. I don't even know if we need to know the details, but like, do they do it at no charge to them? Are they bought in with you? And
it's no charge.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just volunteer and stuff.
So how have you gotten your team bought in on community outreach?
So the majority of the team that's with, or like almost everybody that has at one point been in the team, is on the team or one point been on the team, they've seen our community work, like on social media or stuff like that. And they've always said, and I have friends that also own other barbershops in the Valley and in other states. And they're like, hey, I always talk about wanting to give back or do some volunteering, but it's hard for me to coordinate, so they're aware of it. And so they kind of go in knowing what we do in the community, and that's one of the things that have attracted to them. So I already know, like, the people that are coming to me, they know, like, hey, I'm likely going to be involved in this. Am I down to do this? Yeah. And that is something that's attracted to them. But then during the interview process, I always have them do like a 5 to 10 minute call with my wife, and she just has a simple call, and it's just to talk about like kind of like their compassion, like kind of like giving back, and like just providing that safe space for people of all ages and like mental health things, and just like that's her focus. So it's just having her.
They get on the phone with her. I love that. Have you ever? Do you know who Andy Grammer is? The artist, the music artist.
I'm horrible with names, but if I hear a song or see somebody, I'll know.
So he has a song called Fresh Eyes.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite. People don't understand why I listen to music on YouTube. Yeah, I'll send it to you. But It's one of the coolest music videos, because the entire music video, they go to a homeless shelter and he coordinates, I'm sure it's his agency team, whatever, for these homeless people to get haircuts and new clothes. And it's just cool. Videos of them like looking at themselves, getting a haircut, and then seeing themselves. Yeah. And it's such a cool thing to see. And I can't imagine that you get to feel that often. Yeah. And so how often, because I feel like you have to be intentional about community outreach. It doesn't just randomly happen all the time. And so how often do you tell your team, like, hey, every quarter, every 6 months? What is it for you guys?
We try to do something like every 6 weeks. Okay. We're always doing like some type of like fundraiser or like activity. The last year we've been doing a lot of stuff in Chandler with the Semicolon Society, and they have these like Tuesday talks for parents and these like mental health like vigils and like counseling sessions and things like that. So this past year we've been more intentional about doing more community work outside of volunteering and cutting hair for kids in foster homes. So we've just been expanding like our community like outreach programs, I would say. But cutting the kids' hairs, we try to do like every 5 to 7 weeks. But then we'll always sprinkle in other things that necessarily we could support, but it's not taking the barbers from
the chair.
Yeah, like from the chair or like their personal time and stuff. Because I want to be respectful of that too. Yeah. That also.
I love that. And what I think is so cool with what you do and how you guys post and go about it is you guys have it often, you do it often, but also when you come back into the office, and when I come back into the office and these guys are just talking about it, that's what's so neat for me. And you've been a huge example to Coconut, and I want to get back on the schedule with. I feel like every couple months we're like, man, let's do community outreach. And then we start talking about it, and then we open it up to everyone for ideas, and all these different let's go do this, and then a couple months later we're like, wait, we didn't do anything about it. So you've been a great example about being intentional and having a standard for how often you're doing it. Now, real quick, I was at your place maybe 6 months. I forget the timeline. And you said, hey, man, I'm doing a new product. And I'm actually particular about the products that I use. And you said, do you want the pomade or I forget the other one? I'm going to do this whole thing about it. I'm like, okay, whatever, Frandy. Like, let's do that one. And I'm like, you know what? That looks nice. Yeah. And then I remember showing up one day and you had it on the shelf. And I'm like, what's that? And you're like, no big deal. I'm like, what is that? And you're like, that's my product. I was like, oh, let me get a couple of them because, I loved how it stayed last time. So what inspired you to start a whole product line? And please tell everyone about that and what you're up to.
Thank you. So Mission Barbers, we started with our own products almost a little bit after I opened up the doors in 2020, but it was branded, Mission Barbers.
Correct.
Right. And we had those products that were getting made offshore because the companies that were in the U.S., their minimum order quantities were just through the roof. The price was through the roof. And I was like, no, I want it affordable, but I want a quality product. But I was like, you know what? Let me go with this company offshore, just develop and go through different iterations and learn the industry. And a year and a half ago, I was sitting down with one of my, I felt like kind of like mentors. I was cutting his hair, and he's like, I think you're ready for me to introduce you to my best friend. And I'm like what do you mean? And then he told me, and we had a few conversations. We hit it off. So we started a new company called Mission Haircraft a year ago. And we now have a manufacturing plant in Nevada.
The heck? Okay.
So, so they make our products, and we're working on some other things. But we knew
other things can't disclose yet, or what?
More like on beard and body products also.
Okay. You're going up toe to toe with Dr. Squatch and Axe and all those guys. Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah. So so the website went live last week, and we'll start setting up.
And what's the website again?
Just missionhaircraft.com.
Mission Haircraft. And
yep.
I'm super excited for you. How does the product line fit in line with just Mission Barbers in general?
Yeah.
Are you going to try to get this into stores? Are you trying to go what's the main purpose of the product? Is it an extension of what you started here? What are you trying to do?
Great question. So, we definitely are going to, focus on online sales, some wholesale, so different barbershops and different supply stores and things like that. But one thing that, and Rob is my partner's name, is and I had a different name for it. It was distinguished grooming. He's like, no, I think you need to have mission in there because of the philanthropy and everything that you've done with the barbershop. Don't throw that away.
Yeah.
So that's how we came up, with the name Mission Haircraft. But we're like, all right, what could we do that's different? All right, so we're taking, percentage of the proceeds, and we're going to be donating these grooming kits to kids in foster homes across the country. So we're going to start off with these 5 cities. So
Randy, I just feel I feel inspired, and I also simultaneously feel like a bum. I'm like, man,
no. You inspired me so much. We're going to do some things together.
Yeah, I would love to, one, not only see how it's going to affect here, but also with the outreach and the philanthropy. That's just so cool. Because I think often in business, we get so focused on margins and how can we extend the dollar a little bit more. And you just seem to continue to keep pouring into your mission and reciprocity and giving. And it just seems to always come back to you.
Yep. And that was something that I learned through this, I feel journey of my adult career, you know, it's like, right, like focus on like what's that? Yeah, we're all in the business to be profitable, right? And take care of things, but like what's that? I saw like with the barbershop, what how it helped the business of like being like outward focused and helping out. And you do it like to sincerely help out, but it also has helped the business in different levels, from like the culture to the people that is in the team, the people that like the clients that we attract. So like, don't forget about that.
Yeah.
You know, and then so do that also with the product line too, and just have it like tied together. So it'll be like an extension of that. So I feel like with our philanthropy, it's all tying together, but it's a separate company. And then, you know, the idea is, yeah, we'll have it inside of our barbershop, but that's just, you know, pretty much get it in people's hands. But like the online sales, that's where it's gonna.
I love it. And you have like a little astronaut and rocket on there. What?
Yeah.
I love it. And I think what's clicking for me now, and what I love about what I'm hearing, is the Frandy you were talking about in 2018, and what you're struggling with, and being open with your kids, and you're walking that fine line with, you know, your wife, and then, you know, come January 2020 is this, like, you get the key to this empty room, and you envision things as small as like, hey, I want this bookshelf here, this cigar box here, and I want, you know, I want to do this, and I want to give back. And now, like, because I hope your kids listen to this. Like, Frandy, you're one of the best people I know. Thanks. And I talk about you to so many people. You're so kind, and I hope your kids know how amazing you are, and that everything that we see from a public standpoint is a fraction of what you've had to deal with to get to this point. And it's an honor for me to call you a friend and my barber. And I'm always just so proud to say, like, hey, I go to Mission Barbers, and you've come and cut coconuts here, and you're just amazing. And I hope your kids know that. I know your kids know that. I know your wife knows that. But you're such a inspiration to me, being intentional about how you show up and how you smile and how you make people happy. Maybe not necessarily to close us out with, but how are you doing now, you know, with your mental health and coping mechanisms? And what's your advice to anyone out there that wants to start their business? Maybe they're struggling in their business. They have those dynamics of, you know, mental health, whatever it might be. Where are you at now? And, you know, maybe what are some takeaways that you would give to them and say, hey guys, like, stick with it. What's your message?
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't had, since I opened the doors, and this is also going through COVID, which was bad for a lot of businesses, but I felt like we thrived during that time. Like, find like your support system, you know, openly communicate with people, like, you know, like, be vulnerable, like with those people. And if you're thinking about starting, you know, a business, like, don't be real with yourself on what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then how you're going to close the gap on those things, right? Like, how you're going to, like, you know, if there's like a variance, like, how you're going to like balance that out, you know? And I think, like you said before, it's easy to do things like in community. So like, how you're going to level up. So, you know, do those things. But that comes with being open about, like, to yourself and to other people, you know, to those people, like, hey, I need help with this, you know? So that's what I would recommend.
And how are you doing now?
Yeah, so really good. That's where I was going. I knew I was forgetting something.
I was like, I'm not gonna let you.
So since I opened the business, I have not had, like, let's say, like, a down that lasted more than like 16 hours. In like 4.5 years. And before, it was every other week, that, like, and like bad for like a whole week. So I feel like, kind of like the best version like of myself, not like physically. I'll get there, babe, one day. But like, I feel like the best version, like, of myself, and it's because 100%. There's so many things that have helped with that, but it's just been being more like outward focused, and then, you know, being able to pause, enjoy every little moment, whether it's with our, you know, our baby, or with the coworkers, or with the clients, or whatever it is I'm doing. Just try to be intentional about that, because you don't know how many of those moments you're gonna have.
Frandy, You're the man. I appreciate you so much. And
thanks, man.
Thank you for that. And I'm so happy to hear about, that you feel the best version of yourself and you're protecting that best version and you're making that best version level up. And I'm sure your kids and your wife are so proud of you, and your people love you. And I think it'd be a blessing for any small business owner or anyone out there just to be able to meet you and get to know you and get a little bit of that Frandy influence, because it's definitely contagious. And anytime after a haircut where I see you can be cutting someone's hair, you'll see me and like you drop the clipper and you do a hug, and it's like, I love it, man. And I really appreciate you. And I really appreciate you coming here on the podcast. And I look forward to seeing that journey grow, and we'll attach the link and everything to your haircraft or your hair products. And just appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you, man. Thanks.
Appreciate you, man.